Hello everybody, welcome to my channel. Pop the champagne, it's time to celebrate. Holy shooting stars, do we got a bull rally going. This is a raging bull market. I think the conditions that are causing this have never been seen before in history. That's why it's different. That's why comparisons to 2008 do not hold water. And Jerome Powell just announced that they are talking about cutting rates, more or less. He more or less implied that. And the stock market just went crazy. And it's going to keep going up. You know, I think the NASDAQ is around 16,000. I think it's headed for 18,000. I would bet money on that. And I am betting money on it. I'm investing in the stock market. But I think we could see 20,000 on the NASDAQ sooner than people think. It sounds wild, but this is a wild market. Things are going right. Finally. We received good news on inflation on Tuesday, where the headline CPI was around 3%. I wish it was 3%, but it was 3.1% to be exact. Okay, we got to be exact. But that's only 1 point away from the fabled 2% we're aiming for. The core inflation, which tends to be stickier, is still at 4%. So that means they're going to keep rates up for a while. The earliest they would possibly cut rates would be in March. But we would need energy prices to stay down. A lot of things would have to continue to go right for that to happen. We got better news on Wednesday. In fact, the news on the producer price index was so favorable that several members of the Federal Reserve changed their votes to be more favorable as far as the dot plot goes. The dot plot predicts how many rate cuts are going to do them and when they're going to do them. People watch the producer price index because it tends to forecast what the CPI is going to be. The core producer price index came in at 2%. Now that's the sticky part, and that's coming in right at what the Federal Reserve wants. And the headline PPI, producer price index, came in at 0.9%. Let's just say 1%, okay? It came in half what the Federal Reserve is aiming for. So no wonder Jerome Powell was so cheered up and made the remark that, yeah, we're not only thinking about cutting rates, we are actually totally thinking about it. In fact, we're talking about it. And that's why the market went crazy, because they wouldn't even admit thinking about it before. Now they're actually talking about it. It's being driven by the rate cuts, anticipation, but it's also being driven by artificial intelligence, which is a juggernaut of our lifetimes. And it's the trend. You want to hop aboard. NVIDIA and BROADCOM just did outstanding. BROADCOM just blew my mind. I could not believe how much that went up. And ASML, which is very vital to artificial intelligence, and which a viewer talked me into investing in, frankly. They said, why don't you invest in ASML? And I looked at ASML and said, why am I not investing in it? And I invested in it, and I've made good money on that so far. And just look at that chart, would you? NVIDIA and ASML each made about 6% in a week's time, but BROADCOM, it made 20% in a week. Holy buckets. The best index to trade, in my opinion, is the TQQQ, the QQQ. It's the 100 largest companies on the NASDAQ. And I love to trade the TQQQ, which is riskier, and I can't recommend it because you have to be used to day trading and you got to watch it all the time. But you know what? I used to just day trade with the TQQQ, and nowadays I just leave it on. And if I ever take some off because I chicken out, it's just been a mistake. And I'm making massive money on the TQQQ. Looking at the chart, you can see that the QQQ has made about 5%, and the QQQ, of course, has made 3 times as much, 15%. What a country. As you can tell, I'm going whole hog into this artificial intelligence, and I think it's the mega trend that you can catch. You know, the thing is, the groundwork has already been done on artificial intelligence. You know, Google and Microsoft and Apple, all those big companies, they've been working on this. They've been edging up towards it. But Microsoft broke the barrier with ChatGPT because it could do things that hadn't been done before. And now we are entering a very critical area. Now we are teaching machines to reason. Holy buckets. You know, the problems with making machines more like humans, they also will have the capacity to lie. That unique human capacity. So we somehow got to figure out a way to give them the power to reason and still remain truthful. Otherwise, we're going to be creating political machines, it seems like. To get a fuller spectrum on the artificial intelligence, I think if you invest in the triple Qs, either day trading the TQQQ or just doing the QQQ, which is the more sensible course and is more suited for long-term investing, and you don't have to worry at night that much, and you can go to sleep and rake in the money on artificial intelligence, because all of those big companies, the Magnificent Seven, is all in on artificial intelligence, and it's only going to become more significant. And it will literally change our lives. I've also invested in AMD, which is in second place next to NVIDIA. I think NVIDIA, I used to say it was making 90% of the artificial intelligence chips. From my reading, I'm gathering that it's more like 80%. And AMD, I'm not sure they do a full 10%. It might be more like 8%, because I think there's a lot of other companies like BROADCOM that are making artificial intelligence chips. And I think everybody else, I would say NVIDIA makes about 80%, AMD makes about 8%, and all the rest make about 12%. And that's a guess from my reading. I think it's probably pretty close. I've invested in AMD and in a super microcomputer, which does mostly servers for artificial intelligence. And looking at the chart, all you can say is, what a week, what a week, what a week for super microcomputer, SMCI, and AMD. The super microcomputer made about 8%, and AMD made about 18% in a week. Wow. And even my bond funds did well. Looking at the chart, TMF, which is the triple leverage bond fund on long maturity bonds of 20 years or more, that made about 2.2%. And my favorite, the junk bonds, good old JNK, made about 1.5%. And the TLT, which is just the plain vanilla version of the 20-year bonds, it made almost 1%. It made 0.9%. I'm not enthused about bonds, and I see this as being very likely to skyrocket if they actually start beginning to cut rates instead of just talking about it. And it also is a counterbalance. If an accident happens and my stocks go down and they're forced to cut rates because things are so bad, well, these funds will skyrocket. So it's a little bit of insurance. But hey, everything went up today. How beautiful is that? One of my favorite random investments has been in Rolls-Royce, whose symbol is RYCEY. And I bought it at $2.91, and it ended the day Wednesday at $3.85. So I've made over $9,000 on it. And I noticed that Moody's has increased their credit rating. So I think we caught a company that was down on their luck, and now I think things are going to take off. And I in general for the economy, but you know, people are flying a lot. We had the heaviest travel day in history, the Sunday after Thanksgiving. So there's lots of wear and tear on those airplane engines that need to be replaced. And I think Rolls-Royce has a very bullish future, as you can see from the chart, that it's done very well in the last month. And I will continue to hold those 10,000 shares. I love technology, especially artificial intelligence, which I think is a juggernaut of our lifetimes. But once in a while I get thinking, well, maybe I should diversify a little bit. And that's partly why I went into Rolls-Royce. But I kept having this company show up at the top of my screens over and over. So, okay, I'm buying it. And it's installed building products. And they make many products that are common to houses, but their primary thing is insulation. And they also do garage doors. So it kept showing up at the top of my screens. Okay, I'm buying it. Its price to earnings is 16, and it has a decent earnings growth rate, a good earnings growth rate of 18%. So this is my stab at diversification, but let's face it, I'm a technology addict, so I'll keep going at it, and I'll do my day trading. But you know, I'm not afraid of this market anymore. It used to be that I was afraid to leave TQQQ. I was afraid to leave that in overnight. And now I'm afraid not to be in it overnight. So the tide has turned. Things have changed. We can party like it's 2021 maybe once again, hopefully. I don't think it'll get that bullish, but hey, you never know. And the bears on YouTube are getting pathetically desperate. Now, the only thing they can say bearish is something bad might happen. Really? Man, I've lived a lifetime and I just never realized that bad things can happen out of the air sometimes and you just can't predict it. Really? Wow. That's amazing insight. If you like this market half as much as I do, why don't you flip me a like, because it really helps the channel out, and I can continue to bring you the news you need and isn't full of bare prognostications. You know, I don't hesitate to go bearish when conditions are right, but holy mackerel, the VIX is in the 12s. It was like 12.07. When's the last time we've had it that low? This is a raging bull market, and it's time for the bears to admit it. That's the way I roll. Be sure to like and subscribe, and come back and see how this all pans out.
I'm on my own, broken and alone. I feel the rain crashing down all around this empty town. I'm searching for the lost and found. But you don't care, you're unaware. Keep moving like the scars aren't even there. It's